What if the very system designed to keep you safe was lying to you? Sounds strange, right? On the night of November 14th, 1990, a flight that should have been routine turned into one of the most haunting examples of technological betrayal and human misjudgment in aviation history. Alitalia Flight 404, a McDonnell Douglas DC-932, departed Milan Linate Airport en route to Zurich, Switzerland, a short 144-mile hop. Though the visibility was typically good, the weather north of the Alps appeared to be rather hazy, with occasional rain showers and light westerly winds at both of their locations. The sole problem was that, on their penultimate trip, it appeared as though some fog might be developing over Linate, which naturally could create some problems. Apart from that, there were no genuine issues anticipated. The flight was crewed by Captain Raffaele Liberti, a seasoned 47-year-old pilot with more than 10,200 flight hours, and First Officer Massimo De Fraia, just 28, with only 831 hours of experience. Despite the disparity in experience, the two had flown together the previous day and were familiar with each other. But what neither of them knew was that a silent failure already lurked within their aircraft, a failure that would nullify their training, overwhelm their judgment, and ultimately kill all 46 souls on board. The aircraft itself had already exhibited technical issues earlier in the day. Reports in the maintenance log indicated that the navigational radios were unreliable, and attempts had been made to address the problem. Ground engineers swapped the nav receivers, replacing them with a King K&R R6030 in Navi-1 and a Collins 51 RV2B in Nav-2, both units known to lack proper fault monitoring. Complicating matters further, the location on the ramp did not allow a complete check of the ILS glide slope reception. The aircraft was returned to service, albeit with a note in the log requesting a full Category 2 ILS approach to be performed to verify functionality. It was a dangerous gamble masked by routine procedure. How could such a glaring risk be dismissed so casually? The approach to Zurich was expected to be straightforward. Visibility was good, with scattered clouds and light winds. Zurich ATC cleared Flight 404 for an ILS approach to runway 14, instructing them to descend to 4,000 feet. The pilots configured their navigation systems accordingly. But here's where the story takes a chilling turn. The captain's ILS system began showing that they were established on the glide slope. Everything looked normal. The first officer's system, however, showed no glide slope capture. The discrepancy triggered a comparator warning light, a signal designed to alert the crew when the captain's and first officer's instruments disagree. The first officer called out, expressing concern. He saw that they were too low and initiated a go-around, but instead of following through, the captain dismissed the call and did something catastrophic. He switched the nav input to force both sets of instruments to accept the same faulty data. A fatal mistake, made in seconds. That one action removed the system's last line of defense, with both sets of instruments now showing the same erroneous glide path, centered, as if perfectly aligned. The flight descended along a path that would lead them straight into a mountain. Unknown to them, the aircraft was more than 200 feet below the correct glide slope. The mountain ahead, Stadlerberg, was cloaked in darkness and completely unlit. Because the aircraft's gear and flaps were down and the descent rate was within GPWS parameters, the ground proximity warning system failed to issue a warning. The very systems meant to prevent such an accident were compromised by the false input from the Navi-1 receiver. Can you imagine the trust placed in these instruments, only for them to lead the crew to their deaths? Inside the cockpit, the first officer questioned their altitude, asking if they had passed the outer marker. His instruments still looked wrong, but the captain reassured him, incorrectly, that all was fine. A few seconds later, at just 350 feet above ground level, the captain finally voiced uncertainty. "That doesn't make sense to me." The first officer replied, "Nor to me." For a moment, there was a glimmer of hope. The autopilot was disconnected. A go-around was initiated. They began to climb. Relief must have surged. Maybe they were going to make it. But it was too late. The captain, still misled by his instruments, stopped the maneuver. "No, no, no," he said. "Catch the glide." The first officer complied. The nose was pushed back down. Moments later, the aircraft slammed into the side of Stadlerberg Mountain at 1,660 feet elevation. It exploded in a fireball visible from miles away. Everyone on board perished, all because of one last, irreversible decision. The investigation that followed revealed a shocking chain of preventable failures. The faulty NAV-E1 receiver was known to lack proper fault indication. Its failure resulted in a centered glide slope reading even when no signal was present. The GPWS, relying on that false data, did not sound an alarm. The captain's decision to override the go-around sealed the aircraft's fate. The cockpit gradient, the imbalance of authority between captain and first officer, meant the junior pilot's warnings went unheeded. How many tragedies must it take before we listen to the voice of the less experienced? In the aftermath, Alitalia and the global aviation community took critical steps. Non-monitored nav receivers were removed from service. Go-around policies were changed. Once initiated, a go-around could not be aborted without mutual agreement. Enhanced GPWS systems with terrain databases were mandated. Drum altimeters, which had confused pilots in multiple accidents, were replaced with digital ones. Crew resource management, CRM training was reinforced to ensure junior crew could speak up and be heard. But change always comes after the fact. Why must lives be lost before the system wakes up? But these changes came too late for Flight 404. The passengers aboard that flight trusted the instruments, the systems, and the people in the cockpit. They never saw the mountain coming. The tragedy of Flight 404 is a harsh reminder that in aviation, redundancy and procedure only work if someone has the courage to question the machine. The plane said it was safe. It wasn't, and that's why the name Alitalia 404 remains etched in history, not just as a flight number, but as a cautionary tale, a haunting lesson, a moment frozen in time. And while aviation has become significantly safer over the decades, the threat of accidents still looms. According to the International Air Transport Association, IATA, there were 39 aviation accidents globally in 2023, with 5 involving fatalities, although the fatal accident rate was just 0. 16 per million flights, meaning air travel remains statistically one of the safest modes of transportation. Each incident is a sobering reminder that safety is never to be taken for granted. Behind every number is a story, a family, a community forever changed. Modern aircraft are filled with redundant systems and intelligent safeguards, but no machine is infallible, and no crew immune to pressure or error. The lessons of Alitalia 404 remain painfully relevant, because sometimes all it takes is one misjudged decision, and the plane says it's safe until it isn't. So now, I want to hear from you. What do you think was the biggest failure that led to the crash of Alitalia Flight 404? Was it the faulty equipment, the captain's overconfidence, or a breakdown in cockpit communication? If you were the first officer, would you have insisted on the go-around, no matter what? If you're a pilot or frequent flyer, do stories like this change how you feel when boarding a plane? Share your thoughts below. Your insight could make a difference, and your perspective might help someone else speak up when it matters most.